This is you. In the midst of a space filled with mourning and darkness, you're wearing a pure black silk mourning outfit under the domes of the largest cathedral in the state of New York. All around you, hundreds of mobsters lower their weapons and bow their heads in a sign of respect. You take out a black lace handkerchief, gently wipe away your tears, playing the role of the grieving widow, who has just lost her rock to perfection. But no one suspects the truth you hide behind that veil. Just as the lid of the casket closes, an almost imperceptible smile appears on your lips. It was you who set the trap, revealing his coordinates to the feds, through a naive mistress so you could inherit a money laundering empire worth billions of dollars without a hitch. And what was it that turned you into a demon so ruthless as to murder the very man you shared your bed with? Let's go back in time, 25 years. You are a young woman, full of ambitions, raised in the Emerald Triangle in California, where the extensive cannabis farms are known as green gold, but are soaked in the exploitation of local gangs. You dream of a quiet life and marry a local police officer full of aspirations. But your dreams of peace are quickly crushed by a cruel reality. Your husband's miserable police salary isn't even enough to buy milk for your newborn son, while the small family business always has to endure the threats of criminals demanding protection money. The climax that broke your few remaining illusions happened the night your son suffered a seizure from a high fever. You ran with the little one in your arms to a rundown public hospital begging the doctor on duty, but you only received cold rejections just because you didn't have the money for the copay. Suddenly, a deafening screech broke the silence, and a wounded local crime boss was brought in by a group of thugs. The man threw a thick wad of blood-stained $100 bills on the reception desk. Immediately, all the doctors and nurses rushed to save him, abandoning you and your son in a dark corner of the hallway. Your husband came running in his uniform, but seeing the mob boss, he could only lower his head cowardly. The police badge on his chest looked more rusted and useless than ever. As you held your son who was losing consciousness in your arms, your tears stopped falling, and your faith in justice was completely broken. The obsession with poverty and the fierce desire to protect your offspring at any cost began to sow a dark seed deep in your mind. A few days after the night of terror at the hospital, your son has escaped danger thanks to the money you had to borrow at suffocating interest rates from loan sharks. That night, your husband returns home reeking of cheap bourbon. He throws a paper bag full of dollars on the table. His fragile masculine ego, cruelly trampled at the hospital, pushed him to the option of accepting payoffs from the same crew as the mob boss from that night, to look the other way as a truck loaded with weed passed through his checkpoint. Your husband trembles, terrified of being caught by internal affairs and sent to prison. Instead of being afraid or trying to stop him, like before, the image of your son writhing in the dark corner of the hallway and the screech of the mobster's tires suddenly make your throat close up. You stare at the wad of cash and then look at the stack of medical bills piled up on the table, and a small spark of hope shines in your mind. Calmly, you take the money and stash it away under the astonished gaze of your husband. You tell this to your close older brother, who runs a dive bar on the outskirts of the city. Being in contact with many local crime syndicates and witnessing their illegal transactions, he gives you a suggestion. Bring the money here to mix it with the revenue from the bar. You are the best with numbers in the family, you handle the books. Wash it clean and it will be yours. You glance out of the corner of your eye at your son's expensive box of medicine that was just bought with those dirty dollars. Then you turn to look at your brother. You take the ledger and officially nod your head. Several months after the nod in the dive bar, the records of medical debt have disappeared, replaced by thick accounting ledgers. Your outstanding math skills have transformed your brother's empty dive bar into a perfect money laundering machine, cleverly camouflaged under import invoices for liquor and food that never existed. The bags of cash that your husband smuggles in are no longer accompanied by a trembling fear, but by a bottomless greed. From being a low-ranking officer, thanks to the dirty money you wash to pay off the brass, your husband rises to the rank of captain, becoming a key informant who provides crucial data for the crew. Your family moves from the projects to a luxury apartment, and your son receives the most expensive medicines. You start to become addicted to the invisible power that numbers bring. You no longer wait passively for your husband to bring in the money, but actively suggest plans designing strategies to create shell companies so that the cash flow runs more smoothly. However, along with the piles of money that stack higher and higher, the smell of gunpowder on your husband's clothes becomes more intense every day. One night, he throws a bag of money covered in dried bloodstains on the table, bragging with a mocking smile about how the crew just wiped out a rival gang. You freeze a chill running down your spine. But instead of panicking and throwing it away like the times before, you silently take the bag to the bathroom, turn on the faucet, and scrub the bloodstains off every single bill. You look at your husband's face, which still bears traces of blood, and set a moral boundary for yourself saying, "You only manage the business. The murders outside are your husband's business, and you will never touch the product. You have become an accomplice, but you still believe you are clean." One day, your shipment of top-shelf liquor transported across state lines is delayed. You personally go down to the main warehouse to check and discover to your horror that under the false bottom of the oak barrels, there is no alcohol, but sophisticatedly packaged bundles of fentanyl. The final line has been crossed. Infuriated, you take the evidence to confront your husband. He, who is now an arrogant and paranoid kingpin, nods admitting it. He is igniting a bloody war with rival crews to monopolize the turf. He needs a ton of money to buy weapons, and your legitimate network is exactly what he requires. You refuse and threaten to burn the warehouse down. He lunges to strangle you, roaring and cursing the weakness of women. You still cling to the last moral boundary you set for yourself to resist. But your ultimate limit had already been his target for a long time without you knowing. He has put your 16-year-old son, your very life, into the frontline hit squad to teach him how to be a man following exactly the toxic culture of hypermasculinity. You fall to your knees, the trap has closed. He pressures you saying, either you personally use your logistics system to seamlessly transport tons of drugs and finance the war, or the organization collapses, your son will be used as cannon fodder, and you will rot in federal prison because the company's documents are in your name. Unable to lose your son, you wipe away your tears, return to the warehouse, and seal the barrels containing the drugs with your own hands. You have gotten your hands completely dirty. Accepting the blood-soaked reality, your mind takes a dark turn. You begin to understand that money cannot solve all the problems in this underworld. You need much more power to save your son and escape your husband's oppression. From this moment on, you do not just transport fentanyl hidden in the false bottom of liquor barrels, but you also begin to secretly skim millions of dollars from the drug profits laundering the money through your network of shell companies. You use this massive slush fund to establish your own empire of power. You start buying the loyalty of the street lookouts and bribing the mid-level lieutenants. They are men who are sick of your husband's impulsive, brutal, and senseless violence because his massacres only attract unwanted attention from the feds and the DEA. When a crew leader under your husband's command discovers this and plans to rat you out about your skimming, you keep your cool and do not panic at all. You summon him to a closed office and throw a stack of photographs at him. The pictures of him embezzling the organization's funds to finance his lavish lifestyle scatter all over the floor. The color drains from his face because he understands your husband's brutality better than anyone. And to keep himself safe, he chooses silence. Now, not only do you have an independent financial base, but you also hold the darkest secrets to be able to control anyone. And you are willing to kill anyone who dares to oppose you. With your newly acquired power, you secretly bribe the leader of the hit squad to transfer your son to logistics duty, keeping him safe and away from the hail of bullets. You have completely transformed. Your marriage is no longer a relationship of love, but has become a strategic business partnership full of cold calculations. Today, you are no longer just the mob boss's wife, you have truly manipulated the syndicate from the shadows. Returning to the present, right after the lavish funeral, you know perfectly well that you cannot use authority to control those hardcore enforcers who always despise women due to their toxic masculinity. Instead of facing them head-on, you choose to squeeze the throat of the organization, its money laundering network. You use your control over more than 70 front businesses, including restaurants and real estate, to freeze all the funds destined to buy weapons and pay the salaries of the trigger-happy militant wing loyal to your late husband. At the same time, you secretly strike a deal with the regional underbosses, pragmatic strategists, who want to turn the syndicate into a stable business coalition instead of massacring each other. Holding the cash flow in your hands, sitting in the legitimate corner office in Manhattan, you firmly believe that you have managed to wash the syndicate clean and protect your family. You isolate your son from the violence by setting up a safe position for him in a real estate firm. But the culture of hypermasculinity that your husband planted in your son's head has run too deep. Just when you think your son is gradually stepping away from the bloodshed he is secretly meeting with the very same enforcer boss whose resources you just cut off, and what you feared so much has actually happened. Your son has transformed into another version of your husband and could even become much more ruthless. And at this very moment, he is secretly planning a revenge so brutal that you could never begin to imagine. The decision to completely cut off the financial resources of the militant wing did not bring the submission you expected. Instead, it unintentionally ignited a devastating hurricane. Just a few days later, the extremist group, now secretly commanded by your own son, launched a large-scale retaliation campaign called a scorched earth policy. The city of New York quickly sank into a sea of fire and absolute chaos, with fierce firefights breaking out regardless of day or night all over the streets. Hundreds of buses, trucks, and gas stations were doused with fuel and burned by them to form massive walls of fire that blocked the main highways and completely paralyzed any mobilization attempt by the National Guard. They even set fire to the big box stores to create a ghost town atmosphere, aiming to deal a direct economic blow to the syndicate bosses cooperating with you. Sitting in the CEO's office where you felt safe, you freeze when a video is sent to your phone. On the screen, your son is no longer the obedient and harmless real estate agent you always thought he was. Now he wears black tactical armor, coldly stepping over the bloody corpses of the cops who were just ambushed. Your son's sharp, empty, and brutal gaze pierces your eyes, making you tremble. The weight of guilt crushes your chest as you realize the most terrible irony of your life. The very act of killing your husband to save your son was what turned him into a ruthless kingpin, far surpassing his father's cruelty and madness. At the same time, the regional underbosses call furiously, forcing you to immediately tap into the slush fund and hire contract killers to purge the rebel group. You fall into an abyss of extreme inner conflict. You have to make the hardest decision of your life. Give the order to slaughter your own flesh and blood to protect the corporate empire you worked so hard to build or stand by, and watch your crazed son destroy everything you traded your entire soul to create. Torn between protecting your empire and the cruelty of ordering a hit on your own son, you decide to seek one last chance. You secretly call your son's secure line, hoping to use a mother's love to convince him to stop the scorched earth war. Someone answers on the other end of the line, but instead of your son's voice, you hear the agonizing screams of a woman being tortured. Every cell in your body turns to ice as you recognize that voice. That is your husband's young mistress, the pawn you yourself bought with money to leak the coordinates to the SWAT team during the raid in the Catskills. Amidst the sounds of brutal torture, your name weakly echoes from the mistress's mouth. The metallic click of a gun being cocked rings out clearly. Bang! A deafening blast tears through your eardrums, followed by a deathly silence. The secret you wanted to bury forever has just been exposed. You freeze, the phone slipping from your trembling fingers and falling onto the desk. Your son's voice hisses every word, thick and heavy with murderous intent, echoing from the phone speaker. You are next. The call disconnects, and the beep, beep, beep of the deadline echoes like the end of your very last hopes. You stumble backward, crashing hard against the glass wall. The luxurious office space suddenly spins and distorts. You look down at your perfectly manicured hands, and a hallucination hits you. Fresh blood gushes from between your fingers, sticky and with a heavy smell of rust. In a dark corner of the room, the illusion of your late husband appears with a bullet hole in his chest, standing with his arms crossed, staring intensely at you. He smirks a smile of toxic arrogance, full of contempt and cruelty. You slide down the wall, collapsing onto the marble floor, curling up and clutching your head. You open your mouth, but your throat is choked with bitterness, unable to let out a single cry. You realize that this meaningless empire of billions of dollars is exactly the grave you dug for yourself. Survival instinct wakes you from your extreme panic. Pushing aside the bloody hallucinations clinging to your hands, you stumble toward the large oil painting on the wall and violently tear it down to reveal the hidden safe. Your trembling, scratched fingers frantically press the unlock dial. You grab and stuff the stacks of dollars, the Swiss bank account card, and the fake passport into your bag. An elaborately manicured nail breaks and bleeds, but you do not care at all. You know you cannot escape by yourself from the dense network of predators on the streets, so you grab the burner phone and call the DEA agent you once secretly made a deal with. With a trembling voice, you offer to hand over the entire money laundering network, consisting of 70 shell companies in exchange for an emergency helicopter rescue flight. The other end of the line goes silent, and then a cold, pragmatic voice echoes. You are crazy. New York is a war zone now. Before you can react, a cold beep, beep, beep sounds from the other end of the line. Your last lifeline has been punctured. You run to the floor-to-ceiling window of the office and tear open the curtains. The blinding light from outside illuminates the cruel reality. The entire city is sinking in thick columns of black smoke due to the scorched earth tactic. Down below the building, a convoy of heavily armored SUVs equipped with heavy machine guns is ramming and destroying the main entrance. Your bodyguards throw down their weapons and flee in terror from the gunfire of the bloodthirsty hitmen. The building's alarm sirens shriek deafeningly, mixing with the laughter of your husband's illusion echoing throughout the space. Your escape route has been completely blocked. You are trapped in the very same fortress of billions of dollars that you worked so hard to build. The rifle shot tears through the bulletproof glass in the hallway, making you spin around startled. The massive oak door leading to the CEO's office is kicked open. The person who enters is not a group of unknown hitmen, but your own 16-year-old son. He is wearing all-black tactical armor, stained with the blood of the bodyguards he just murdered in the lobby. In his hand, he holds a gold-plated AK-47, the relic left by his late father. The shock makes you drop your bag. The stacks of dollars scatter under the toe of his combat boots. Stripping yourself of all the dignity of a queenpin, you fall to your knees on the floor. Open both arms and with tears flowing, you beg him to stop. Your son stops the toe of his boot, coldly crushes the stacks of dollars with extreme contempt. He slowly aims the barrel of the still smoking gun directly at the center of your forehead. His gaze no longer has the sparkle of a child, but is completely soulless like a killing machine that has been devoured by the cruel culture of hyper-masculinity. He tilts his head and smirks exactly like his late father. Keep the change, Mom. You break down completely, not out of fear of imminent death, but because in the moment of staring directly down the barrel of the gun, you bitterly realize the cruel truth. Your greed could not protect your son, but instead directly molded this beast. Bang! The deafening roar of the chopper, an AK-47, tears through the space, embedding itself directly into the center of your forehead before you can react. Your body collapses onto the luxurious wool rug, dark red blood gushing out, staining and sticking to the dollar bills scattered on the floor. In the final moments of agony, as your vision fades, you do not see a single bit of hesitation, not a single tear from your son. The boy coldly lowers the smoking barrel of the gun, stepping firmly over his mother's lifeless body without bothering to look back. His combat boot crushes the fake passport, and the Swiss bank card, the last illusions of your freedom. You hear the hitmen outside, bursting into the lobby, bowing their heads in respect and shouting in unison, "Long live the new kingpin!" The bloody spiral has closed perfectly. You once got your hands dirty. You betrayed your husband to seize the money, deceiving yourself into believing that you could use dirty money to protect the family. But the cruel reality has proven blood family must always take second place to the violent power of the syndicate. The scene gradually sinks into darkness. The sirens of the police cars wail belatedly and disappear among the dense columns of black smoke enveloping the city of New York. You exhale your last breath in the most extreme loneliness, carrying with you the greatest punishment you yourself handed your son's soul over to the meat grinder called the mob.